Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Audrey Kitagawa. I'm the founder and president of the International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation and chair of the Anti-Racism Initiative of the G20 Interfaith Forum. The International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation and the Seventh Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples have produced a film entitled Time of Prophecy, Walking in the Prayers of Our Ancestors. The film will have its world premiere at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues on April 20th in New York City. We are pleased to offer you an exclusive preview today. Following the film, we will have a discussion with Dr. Henrietta Mann, Ms. Helene Gaddie, and Brian Monongye, all trustees of the Seventh Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples. The Seventh Generation Fund is committed to the traditional values and practices that assure individual and collective health, safety, and well-being of Indigenous peoples. Due to historic and contemporary traumas stemming from colonialism, many Indigenous peoples are deeply wounded. The Seventh Generation Fund leadership stands undeterred in their commitment to rebuild, support, and sustain their traditional values, practices, and relationships to lands, languages, culture, and collective spirit. Let's begin the film.
In our language and in prayer, we call her Ishkeman, our grandmother. She is all things to us. She gives us a place to live. She provides us with the water of life, the air we breathe, the warmth to make life grow, and the light that keeps us all warm. And it saddens me to see the kind of desecration that has occurred and is continuing to occur. And it saddens me that after contact, the strangers that came to share this land with us have brought her to this point where our grandchildren are facing a future that is going to challenge them to the very fiber of their being in terms of global warming, in terms of drought, in terms of rain, in terms of rising sea levels, in terms of flooding, in terms of the kind of health situation we are experiencing, a pandemic, and all of the unfortunate things that will intensify the kind of disaster that results from those of us that forget our ways, that forget to live in balance and in harmony and in an honorable, reciprocal, loving relationship with this grandmother, mother that we call Earth. Our population was decimated by many diseases that came to this country. Conflict, wars, primarily disease, from millions upon millions at contact to about 250,000 in 1890. 250,000 people.
Colonization is to go to a place, you have power, you have guns, you have horses, you have an army, and you go somewhere to take the resources. That's really the essence of colonization. It gets disguised as other things. So we want to civilize people, we want to Christianize people, but the true basis of colonization is to take away from people who already have it. And the power disparity, it's immeasurable. And that's what happened here in California and many places in the world.
Through colonization and through the processes of removing Indigenous peoples from their ancestral lands, from their ancestral territories, and putting us on reservations, stripping us of our culture, of our ways that we practice ceremonies, and our traditional land stewardship practices to protect and really care for Mother Earth, has led to a domino effect, which is why now we're seeing these detrimental effects of climate chaos. The issues of climate change, the issues of resource extraction and exploitation, missing and murdered Indigenous women and young girls and people, they're connected in a lot of different ways. When you look at the overarching structures of colonialism, of colonization, Indigenous people, Indigenous bodies are seen as resources meant for extraction.
Indigenous wisdom has been lost and oppressed through colonization in many ways. And there's a lot of laws that were introduced to prevent people from spreading that knowledge. It was in laws that prevented us from practicing our ways in the sheer numbers of the people that were lost, and also in the stealing of the children. The knowledge can't be transmitted. We don't have our kids. The knowledge can't be transmitted if someone is murdered. It became almost a way where it was just sheer survival. Just to eat, just to be, just to survive the policies that the government brought. You force the people, if they have no land, they can't carry on their traditional ways. If they can't go out and gather their traditional foods or fish in their traditional ways, communal living, that sense of being, the sense of maintaining your values was lost also.
It's the way colonization gets in our bones and in our blood. It's like a toxin. It has us act and do things we all do in ways that destroy rather than nurture and replenish. And that's where we are.
When we give up our self-determination and our sovereignty to other institutions that we had no control in developing, we lose really important knowledge. We've stopped practicing the ways that that knowledge makes itself known to us. And so even the plants are like that. If you don't treat them the way we're supposed to, with respect and reciprocity, they'll leave us.
There's been layers of change, some really alarming. The medicines, how they hide on us now, that are hard to find now, if at all. And also when we go into the mountains to go berry picking, the berries are more scarce. For me, the witness has been that we've forgotten.
I want to teach my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren how to gather these foods and how to dig these roots and how to use these things. But they're becoming scarce now. We can't hardly find some anymore. There's fences that are going up where the farmers don't want us to go in there to dig our roots.
We have to believe in those people that have been on the land for thousands of years, that know how the water has reacted, that know how the land has reacted. For us, when the hardiest of corn seed cannot grow anymore, that is a sign. To lose the corn seed is losing a relation. To lose water is losing the water spirit. We are a part of the water spirit. When we die, we join the water world. That's where our spirit goes. We have to make an extra effort to maintain the land, the language that comes with it, the language of the water, the language of farming, of maintaining the corn seed.
Our foods are experiencing, like we're experiencing a pandemic. Some of our trees are also experiencing sickness. When we appreciate that food and we build that relationship, it gives back to us and we help those trees heal also.
We have to pay more attention to the plants. Like when they say the redbud in the dogwood blooms us when the eels were coming, or when the frog sings, the eels are coming. In order for us to know these other shifts, we need to look at the plants. We need to look at what's going on and know the plants and know how the earth is getting, because you're going to have to learn to live with this new way it's going to be.
When we go out to gather, we're making that spiritual connection with the land. When we're grinding our acorns, when we're sorting them, when we're cleaning our fish, all of that's connecting us back to the land, into our environment. So that plant feels you, it loves you back. Have that relationship. They're communicating with us and talking with us and feeling us. So that's why it's important to give that love and respect to everything around us, because then it will take care of us as well.
I grew up along the Klamath River, and the redwood trees are close relatives. They are a part of our cosmology that are very important to us as Native peoples, as Yurok people. A redwood tree becomes a canoe, an athweach. And a canoe, by and large, is a human being, is a person. It has a heart. It has the elements of a human being. The relationship with the horse, the equine therapy of Native peoples in the plains, we have the same relationship with canoes. That once you get to know them and understand them and feel them and start to feed them and take care of them, they'll take care of you.
Our grandparents have wanted nothing more than for us to walk long on this earth, heeding the teachings of our ancestors who were first to come to this land, who love it, and to see all life as sacred relatives, so that we can maintain the future.
The only way to correct our direction that we're going in now is, of course, to change the values that have been driving the earth. Instead of the values of commerce and money, then we have to think of the values of the natural world and of equity for all life. Water is not adjudicated fairly. Land is not. That has caused the second problem, which is the climate change and the misuse of the natural world elements and the devastation industry has brought to the earth itself.
What I've witnessed in my short 60 years on this planet is acceleration. A lot of change from the way as a child that I remember growing up living off the land to a society of convenience. There's a huge disconnect now. People are no longer connected to the land.
The current state of Mother Earth is exactly the description of the Hopi prophecies. As Philip Deere would say, we've arrived in the direction we've been headed. Mother Earth has had to work to rebalance herself. The impacts of the human beings have made it such that all of her systems have been invaded by a consciousness that isn't ours as Native people.
In this world of capitalism now, what has value? When man takes an action without thinking of that action, that a tree has only value when it's cut down, milled up, and logged off. It has no value standing. Native cultures and native thinking and native philosophy has no value because there's no way to sell it.
There's always collateral, and Indigenous people are always a collateral in the extractive capitalist machine. So anywhere you see this fracking and this extreme degradation going on to the land, you're going to see that manifesting in the state of the people.
We've tripled the population in a lifetime. my lifetime. We've poisoned the water, we've polluted life. There was an old chief from the West Coast in the Northwest, and he said, there'll be a day when we cease to live and begin to survive. And he said, our brother will suffocate in his own waste.
What we're facing at the present day, what's coming in our future, it's been prophesized. And it's all as a result of what has been taken away from our mother, the earth.
The older people already knew that something like this was bound to happen. We connected it to a lot of our teachings that have been passed down. It relates back to when our people lived in the 3 previous worlds. Each world was said to have been destroyed by our disconnect. Our elders always foretold it's bound to happen again, but we have a chance to reverse it. This is the 4th time, and this is our last chance.
A lot of weird things are happening on the earth with the birds and animals and with the different kinds of rains and the winds, the elements and all the things that are happening around me. All these things are teachers to me. And when COVID was heard on the radio for the first time by me, I said to myself, that's in our prophecies also.
I got COVID early in the year. Didn't know what it was. I rarely caught a cold, and this hit me very hard. Had taken every precaution, and still I got it. I went to our nearest hospital, which is in Ukiah, and I was sent home because they had a shortage of ventilators. I was sent home to die.
I'm still losing family members because of the long-term effects of the sickness on people and the mental health effects. I can't feel sorry for myself because every family, every child, every grandchild lost a family member, lost somebody who was close to them. One of my friends made these Christmas can jar things. She had a box of them and she said, I made these for all my friends who lost their moms. Could you imagine? She had a box of 13 of us lost our moms. The pandemic changed my life.
The comorbidity for Native peoples have been outrageous, and it should point to the fact that health care has been historically very bad for Native peoples.
My mom, she was taken by COVID, and she was a nurse for the majority of her life, all the way up until she left us. Her health was already high risk. If she didn't have to go into a crowded dialysis unit, she'd still be here today.
This pandemic has struck us in many ways. We've lost many of our speakers, and this is globally. The state of our native languages is dire. An elder is a library of knowledge. Wait, Pashot, we need to take care of them, because when they leave us, it's like that library burning down.
COVID is erasing our history and erasing our future. We've lost so many Indigenous elders, youth. That is our web, that is our bloodline.
It's changed the whole world because it was the breath that was taken away. It should be the wake-up call with the death of our people.
There'll be more coming. This is just the first one, and as you can see, it's mutating, but there's more coming. More coming, and who knows what form that'll be, but you can certainly expect it to be attacking the human body and life as we see it.
For a long time, we've seen and known that this time of prophecy has been unfolding and that we're at that moment, at that intersection of thought and being and action. And I think the pandemic is an expression of that. But it's also taken form in terms of climate change. It's also taken form in terms of Holocaust, Indigenous peoples' Holocaust that goes on, not only against humans, but against species. So I think that's where we are. And from what I've learned and been taught, that point of nexus offers an opportunity to make good decisions. And some people are making some really good decisions. And then many people aren't. Maybe the majority of people aren't.
We do our part to maintain the sanctity of our first mother, the earth. The way that we help to keep this earth alive in this world functioning and balanced the way it was created. We were given our ceremonies, whereby we renew ourselves as Tsetsehestaestse, the people with like hearts.
We do a lot of dancing, we do a lot of singing, and we do a lot of ceremonies. Those are Thanksgiving ceremonies. They're ceremonies to be thankful for what is here. They instruct our people, they instruct our children, they remind us of the powers and authority of nature itself.
Our ontology holds that everything is fundamentally spiritual in nature. We were blessed with sacred teachings from Creator. He sent all the tribes, holy people, deities, and working with the spirits and Creator, they made this physical world around us out of the spiritual world. When we go back and look at those teachings, they give us direction. Spiritually, we know everything's connected.
The more that we speak up for the salmon and for all creatures, the butterflies, whatever it is, we can't go wrong. One of our great leaders, he said, "Tuhulhutu, the earth is my body. I come from this land." And he talked about how the bones of Mother Earth and everything were part of him. And when we die, we go back to our mother.
We have the ability to create life, and it's here. These are the tools that a Creator gave us. Continuing to put your hands in the ground and continuing to put the seed in the ground. You're maintaining that connection not only to your mother, but also to your ancestors. That's one way that we need to restore balance.
We have critical decisions to make about the climate crisis, about each other, about the love we're going to show each other and all of our relatives. So in our language, when we talk about relatives, we mean marine animals. We're talking about the four-legged. We're talking about the birds in the sky. We're talking about the snakes. We're talking about the bugs. All of those relatives have a right to be here. It's not just us. It's not just us.
In our way, we all say mitaki, we all say all things are related. We're about a spiritual connection with Mother Earth. Our way of life is about health and well-being, taking care of your ancestors, our medicine, our food, and our health. Understanding that life is so important. Even building our homes, like the teepee, our camp, they used to have spiritual songs to lay the grass down after the camp was taken down. The grass stands back up. Those ceremonies were never done for over 100 years. The elders said that we have to pray every month, every year. There's something that has to be done, either going after medicine or doing some kind of ceremony. There's a lot of teachings, the laws keep that circle, the 4 seasons going.
The answer's in the people, and the revival of our language, revival of our canoe making, our basketry, the revival of values that we have, our different ways of life. We have songs and we have stories that can put things back in place. It's beautiful, it's powerful. They're like antennas. That story is a connection. That feather is a connection. That song is a connection. But it's here. You are the main one.
songs, they contain lessons, and they also contain pieces of information that you might need, a key or an experience.
For example, growing up, seeing a tomo, a canoe, on the water, or seeing our relatives all gathered together on the ocean or at a sacred place or gathering place, and it's hard to describe except maybe in a song. And if you're there, you get to feel the song and you have an understanding of the place where it comes from, or maybe you know the family that sang the song.
He told them, I made this earth, and this earth is a female. This earth is your mother, the earth. She is the mother to the animals and to the humans and to the vegetations and to everything that lives. She is the mother to all of you. If we don't do our ceremonies and acknowledge our Mother Earth and sing for her and dance for her, then she too will diminish all the things she gives us to live. Even the waters and the rivers will not be there to quench our thirst.
Walk in beauty is what they say in Navajo. What does it mean to walk in beauty? You have to watch where you step. You have to watch how you step. And we have to understand that we are a part of the environment. We are the environment.
The elders say that nothing is created outside until it's created inside first. And if we want peace, we have to become peace. If we want love, we have to become love. The elders say that the most unselfish thing that you can do is to heal yourself.
What do you leave? What do you leave for the future? Make your decisions upon the generations coming. Those many generations looking up from the earth layer upon layer, each waiting their time.
There may be buildings everywhere, but I recognize this is the mother. And there may be buildings on top, but I recognize that the land is sacred.
There's no other earth. This is home. So as a human race, we have to say that we have to protect our mother. And we have to do it now. It's all our responsibility, indigenous or non-indigenous.
How do we heal the river? How do we bring the water spirit back to life? How do we become native to a land? Re-indigenizing, the exercise of our sovereignty again over major chunks of land. And that sovereignty of self-governments and self-relationship to lands will teach people better to understand where they're living and how to live there.
Consult with your ceremonies and with your old people. So that's part of that consultation they have to work with, is that fire, is that mountain, that river. Those stories and the language and the songs, they have that connections. We bring our medicine together, our feathers, our songs and our stories, then we make spiritual things, and then healing comes.
I've heard it be called love, self-determination, joy, hope for the next generations. We have to give them hope. We have to leave something for them to travel. Everything that's happening, that's revitalizing cultures and communities and thinking and systems and practices and ceremony and relationships, that's all hope.
Love is so critical. Love that transcends generations. Love of everything in our environment, but above all, this earth. A grandmother whom we were all expected to love, just as our grandparents did, to have a reverence for all life, knowing that life transcends us as human beings, and that we as the Khama Wastanil, the indigenous peoples of this land, were placed here to keep our grandmother, the earth, company, but above all, to protect her and to keep her safe.
Oh, winaye, me serve yo yang yo ho yo tane. me serve yo yang yo ho yo tane. Yahweh aye. me serve yo yang yo.
Thank you so much. You know, these personal stories captured in the film tell the stories of truth, starting with colonization, the sacred connections between the indigenous peoples of the land, their culture, traditions, and themselves were severed. The environmental desecration has brought us to the disastrous consequences we are now facing. As profoundly stated in the film, the earth is grieving. Indigenous peoples have long voiced their concerns about these issues, which were foretold by ancient prophecies. So many Native American elders, the bearers and teachers of the language and traditional knowledge, fell victim to COVID, threatening the loss of ancient wisdom and connections to the past. The New York Times called the loss of tribal elders a cultural crisis. Despite their many hardships, the indigenous peoples remain hopeful. Their cultural and spiritual traditions have endured for thousands of years. They see life as sacred and the land as nurturing Mother Earth, who must be honored, respected, and loved. As stated by Chris Peters, when we get to know the elements of our natural world and understand them, feel them, and start to take care of them, they'll take care of you. They continue their ceremonies of renewal and thanksgiving, ever rooted in their respect and honor for Mother Earth. Indigenous communities exist in a relationship of gratitude for all that Mother Earth provides of her sustenance, bounty, and beauty. Dr. Henrietta Mann is Cheyenne and chair of the Board of Trustees of Seventh Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples. Detailed bios of all of our speakers have been placed in the chat box. And Dr. Mann, thank you for being with us today and for taking the time to participate in this film. I will turn the floor over to you now to share with us. Thank you, Dr. Mann.
Now-ish, thank you. I am reminded that we, as the humble two-legged walkers, have not been kind and loving to our mother or grandmother, the earth. If we look at the time that we have lived on this earth together in the context of Indigenous creation stories, which tell the beginnings of our origin from thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years ago, it makes me fear for our grandchildren that what has happened to this land, this earth mother of ours, has taken place in but 531 years since 1492. Or maybe we could skip ahead to say 1620. It saddens me to see that we have desecrated, violated this first mother of ours in ways that pose challenges for our grandchildren and their grandchildren after them. In a little more than a half a century, we have destructively and unlovingly created a challenging future for all the children of this land. As Indigenous peoples, at each of our creation stories, and for us as Cheyennes, after human beings were created, the last of all things that exist in our environment, all of the peoples, the beautiful peoples of this world, we were told to keep this grandmother, mother of ours company. But we were also told that we had to protect her. And as a peoples of the Southern Plains, we continue to carry out those mandates that were given to us at creation and protecting our earth. We do it through our ceremonies. We are a prayerful people, not just us as Cheyennes, but all of my relatives who live on this beautiful earth, the most beautiful of the great ones entire. We were told by a good man that came to live with us, named Sweet Medicine, that our future would change when the strangers would come to us from the direction in which the sun rises, and that they would bring many strange and different things to us. They would bring a long stick with the voice of thunder. They would bring something to feed to animals that would cause them to die. They would bring something that looks like sand but tastes very sweet. And we were told that these people would take our land. They would want it, they would take it. But that is a fearful thought that our grandparents had to live with as they walked into that time of prophecy, carrying the prayers that were given to them at the beginning of all time. We were also told that these strangers who came to live with us would ask us for our children, and we had to say no. Thus, we were told that those that they took would not know anything about their cultural heritage, that they would essentially know nothing of who they are as the beautiful, beloved Indigenous children of this land.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mann, for your beautiful messages. And, you know, Miss Helene Gaddie is Lakota, and it's beautiful to hear these voices of the Indigenous people. And Miss Gaddie is also a trustee of Seventh Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples. And Helene, thank you so much for being with us today and also for participating in this film. Would you please share with us?
Betu washte, wanakja washte wi imachiapi, Helene Gaddie imachiapi. Good day, everybody. My Lakota name is Pretty Flower Woman. My English name is Helene Gaddie. I come from the Oglala Lakota Nation, and I'm really, in reflecting about all of the information that was shared, it reminds me, I guess, I'm really overwhelmed with different thoughts. But what it reminds me of is our teachings and how we need to help our young people learn more, be reconnected, and identify, themselves to walk in the world, to be better, be better ancestors. What are we leaving? The questions that come to my mind is, what are we leaving for our young people? In Western science, we learn about the carbon footprint and about what is climate change, where did it come from? And Tui, Henry, Tui is like our auntie, and that's what I see, how I take that relationship with my Tui. And she shared with us about, the connection of walking on the earth and all of the teachings that were given from our ancestors. And everything we do that we carry out in activities and events as Lakota people, we also ask our elders, for guidance, and also our ancestors for guidance. And there, through the teachings, a lot of, during a chaotic time, it's really important to hang on to those teachings in also recognizing how these, looking at our winter counts, our Lakota winter counts, and seeing how these impacts have been told to us, how our prophecies have been shared with us, and how we listen to them, the importance of listening to our teachings and putting them at the forefront. We live by the teachings of the earth. And when we start to see our different ecosystems or our different species as relatives rather than as possessions, like the plant nation, the animal nation, the water, the land, everything is a relative. And in Lakota, there's a term called Makasi Domini, the universe. And when we think in terms like that and take all of our animal and plants as relatives, we start to, understand and have respect for that. And understanding that our we pray for Unchimaka, for Mother Earth. We pray for healing. We pray for preservation. And, some of these are just like the pandemic, like climate change. Unchimaka is healing herself. And a lot of times, what do we have to remember our prayer. And this, this is how our prayer is being answered. And so helping our young people so that they can learn these teachings and stay connected is really important in helping to keep our cultures alive, because it's more than less often that it's the Indigenous people who have that, historical DNA. We have it in us to put ourselves on the line, to be there and to be at the forefronts, to fight for Unchimaka and to make sure that preservation takes place. And so a lot of times whenever we are coming into issues about mining, about deteriorating the earth, about any kind of racial inequalities, the environmental issues, you will see Indigenous people at the forefront, because we have that innate connection to Mother Earth. And we have those teachings in all of our prophecies. And it's important for us to share and to teach that. And a lot of times in our cultures, it's oral. We have to remember exactly what we are told to the best of our knowledge. And remember the winter counts. Who has the winter counts? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helene. And we express our deepest condolences for the loss of your dear mother and all of the mothers and the elders of the Indigenous peoples during the time of COVID and throughout your history. So thank you so much. And now we'll have Mr. Brian Monongye, who is Hopi and also a trustee of Seventh Generation Fund for Indigenous People, share with us. And Brian, thank you for joining us today and for participating in this film. So please, now you have the floor.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon, depending where you're at. Again, my name is Brian Monongye. My Hopi name is Halaivi. It's given to me by the Corn Clan. My father is the Corn Clan, so the Corn Clan people named me that, and it just means to be a person of happiness and encouragement and so forth. And so just being a part of this film and just watching it again, it creates brings back a lot of it stirs the pot in my head about some of the things that we need to continue to do, and just hearing Henry and Helene speak, just those reminders. It's really important for us to, as Indigenous peoples, is not to forget about our way of lives and our teachings, and know that they're heavily rooted in the way the world goes today. Especially here on Hopi, during ceremony or anything that we do, whether it's ceremonial or social, we understand that we have to be real careful about how we carry ourselves and conduct ourselves, because we're constantly putting the rest of the world before ourselves. And so that saying, we carry the world in the palm of our hands. So we have to be real delicate and very careful about how we conduct ourselves, because what we do and we say here resonates to the rest of the world. And so if we continue to pollute our thoughts and our minds and our hearts, and we do these ceremonies, the rest of the world will feel these effects from it. And so we're no different than the outside world. We're feeling the same effects what the outside world is dealing with, and that was foretold that's what's going to happen, and it's here now. It really is here. And so we have to really sit down and think about, us as Indigenous peoples, how are we going to continue to carry ourselves forward in the next 50, 40, 50, 100 years? Because it's really up to us to continue that way of life, that continue the circle of life that are the instructions that were given to us at the beginning of time. In our way, all races were there at that point in time. We were just humans then. We weren't, who we are today. But we were given that same instructions on how to care and live in this earth. And so we were sent on our ways at the beginning of time to find, to explore the world and see what the world has to offer, and learn from the environment. And then that's who you were going to be as who we are today. And so that's why they say that's the reason why there's a lot of Indigenous peoples throughout the world, is because they were told to go where they're at now and learn about the environment. And then when they settle and stay there, they had their instructions on how to take care of where they're living. And so, now we're, up to the 21st century we're at now, we're dealing with what we're dealing with now, is because it's simple as that, is that we've all forgotten we've forgotten our divine instructions on how to live in this world. And so, so we have to really sit down and really think about that. What does it mean to be a human and to take care of that? So the thing that we're fighting right now is that, the Western world is winning. Of course we have televisions and so forth, but that's the Western way of living. And so it's kind of poisoning our people and our minds, and that's where some of our want to live by all the good things that the Western world supposedly has. But you go back to that teaching about, you know, you only take what meshes with your way of life from the Western world and you combine it with your way of life. But that's not going to be everything. But if you happen to take more than what you're going to take, then we're going to end up the way we are right now. And it's true. We're seeing that. We're seeing that happening right now. And then as far as COVID goes, you know, like I said, it was prophesied that something like this is going to happen, because in everything we do, we have to take consideration about what could be also the outcome. You know, we have to consider those consequences. You know, if I don't do things right, we don't do things right, we have to consider. So that's why it's kind of, they say we're very far behind, but you know, it's going to take a long time to talk about it. So at least, you know, we get the conversation started.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate your comments. And now I'm going to open the floor for questions and answers. And there is a comment from one of our viewers who just wanted to say hello to all of the panelists, and also to point out that the Roma and the Aborigines have met similar problems within the criminal justice system. So now I'd like to turn to Dr. Henrietta Mann. And Dr. Mann, you know, there was a shot of Bear Butte in the film. And could you please share with us the cultural significance of this cultural icon of the landscape to the Cheyenne people?
Of course. And as Indigenous peoples, the earth is our home. Bear Butte, that we call Noah's, the hill that gives, the teaching mountain, gave to us as Cheyennes our way of life. Our teachings come from within that mountain, and it consequently represents the spiritual center of our world. Our ceremony, the male ceremony, comes from that particular mountain. Our lawways, how we are to live, what values we are to carry. And I remember one of the teachings from my great-grandmother, passed down to me from my father and grandfather, who said, understanding is a wonderful thing. I am hopeful that we continue to place an emphasis upon understanding so that this world can be healthy again, and that we can live in respect interdependence with each other, and truly create a world and stop what we are doing in terms of harming our environment, and think far into the future, into the seventh generations, that our children, their children, the grandchildren after them, too will come to walk on a beautiful earth, just as we did. Those kinds of beliefs come from Bear Butte, situated on the periphery of the Black Hills of South Dakota. It has taught us much. It is still there. It is a sacred site where we go to pray, to make our offerings, to strengthen our identity, and to pray for the earth and all life.
So thank you so much, Dr. Mann. And similarly, Ms. Gaddie, you know, on the cultural landscape are the Black Hills. And can you tell us what is the cultural significance of the Black Hills?
It's everything that is in Lakota teachings and our way of life. We are connected with the Buffalo Nation. And at certain times of the year, if there were no fences, there were no roads, imagine a land before anything was here, just the animals, just our people. And the buffalo would be going to different sacred sites at different times. And when you enter, you know, when we take our youth, we take our people, we go into the Black Hills, we know we're home, because it is a part of us. Our creation stories share, that's where our origin comes from. And it's really important that we find ways to protect the Black Hills. We find ways to teach our youth about the different sacred sites in the Black Hills, to take our offerings there, to make prayers, following the Lakota calendar, which is different from the Western calendar. And we do our best to, carry out our activities, carry out our daily life according to that Lakota calendar, and plan around it to make sure that we can go to those sacred sites and bring our offerings to make prayers for our people. So it really is a part of each and every one of us. It's got, when we're thinking about the Western science portion of it, there's different minerals there that are wanted, but for the economy. But that's what makes it special, and that's why we have to protect it, because they go hand in hand with Mother Earth.
So thank you so much, Ms. Gaddie. And there's another question from one of our viewers, and she acknowledges the truth of what each of you have shared, but she also wanted to point out that while it's true, we have to note that our grandparents were invaded and forbidden to practice or pass on the teachings. So her question is, as Indigenous tribes that were uprooted or displaced from your original lands and elders killed, how can the reconnection take place to the sacred land? And who would like to answer that question? Yes, go ahead, Helene.
Go there. You as Indigenous people, you as an Indigenous person, you have the right to go there to pray. And when you, I guess I can say, when you do, you might be met with racism. The Black Hills are within the state of South Dakota, and it's a very racist place. But know that you have that connection. There's other ways too, I guess, if we are, in this new century, fee waivers, you're taking a group, and maybe Tui Henry might have some guidance also.
So thank you. I have a question for Brian. Can you discuss your own experience with climate change and the water and sacred places that you mentioned as it relates to the messages conveyed in the film?
Yeah. So here we're agrarian people. Our way of life consists of farming, but more so we're living the dry and arid environment. So there's hardly any water here, and so water is real special. But our religion is based on the need for water, and so we understand that the water cycle. And so our ceremonies and everything that we do now relates to that. It's calling of the water and so forth, because we need it for our corn and everything that we grow. What makes Hopi kind of unique is that the sacred places and everything that you see here, not just in the Southwest, but we know of all these places throughout the North and the Southern hemisphere of the Americas, because our people traverse there. And like I said, we stayed there and we learned about this, and so learned about what the environment was there. And so we have nowadays, we have clans that came here, and we put our way of life together. So our way of life doesn't derive from the land that we live on, actually derives from the different environments our people have been at in one point in time. And so the need for water is real special for us. So a lot of the ceremonies we have pertain to that. But it also connects to those different places that we've been at one point in time. So that's the reason why you see a lot of the ruins here in the Southwest. Different clans have different connections to that, but more so we know of the broader, I guess, like for example, in the East, the Snake Mound, our Snake clan has connection to that place, even though, Western science says it belongs to somebody else, but we know in our travels, we've been there at one point in time. So that's what, Hopi is kind of, it's made up that way. We know of the water cycle, and so we are the basis of our religion again is the need for water. So really, what we say is that we're all just walking clouds, and that goes back to that saying that scientists are so much percentage of water, and so in our way, we say we're clouds and we're walking clouds. And so when we have ceremonies, we don't close our ceremonies off, because part of that prayer is that we want people from all over to come and watch, because we all represent a different cloud coming to see this. And so when ceremony happens and when different people from all over the world now come, you're answering that prayer, you're part of that prayer. And it's talking about clouds from all different directions coming. And that's what we're hoping and what we're praying for. So, we try to keep things open. Yeah, it's universal.
Thank you so much, Brian. You share some really important points, and also in the film and in your sharing as well, you talk about the prophecies of the Hopi people, which are quite famous all around the world. But Dr. Mann, I wanted to ask you, could you briefly describe some of your tribal prophecies from the Cheyenne people?
Okay, thank you so much. Prophecies. We live in the time of those prophecies brought to us by sweet medicine out of Sacred Bear Butte. I've told you some of them already, but one of them that scares me in terms of living in the time of prophecy is that he said that the earth would burn. And that I remember when there was a fire on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, and my mother and father went to see the fire because they knew what they had been taught as children. They went to see this. We've had wildfires in the western portion of this country, but the earth is burning. If we think about global warming, if we think about this time in which we live, and if it is going to intensify, how it will affect our children. Sweet medicine also said that there will be some of us that do not know how to relate to these changes that are happening to the world. And he said, some of you will sit in the corner of your houses and your homes and cover your heads with blankets, and you will sit there and not do anything except to be frightened. I would hope that we, as the human two-legged walkers, would be very proactive about how we can stop the challenges brought to us by global warming and by climate change. It is a very critical time in the history of this world's peoples, our history as a people. What we have to remember is this relationship that we have to one another and to the earth. As Indigenous people, we say that we have roots in this earth, making her our mother. We're much like a vegetable or a weed or a tree. We have spiritual roots, and we need to strengthen those spiritual roots in order to restore the kind of love for our mother, the earth, that is so necessary today. We have to remember to keep our earth pure and good. I was frightened by the water table level of Lake Mead when I went to visit over Christmas. I cried that this living water, as we call it, Amidaninima, and we have to remember that physical makeup of our body is about 70% water. Mine is a little bit less as an elder, but we have to keep that living water alive outside us and within us, among all of the peoples of the world, including the tree people, those that are rooted in the earth, the four-legged people, the people that fly, the people that were here before we were created as the human beings. We have to be more conscious about our responsibility to this land, to this earth, and to maintaining our ceremonies, our way of renewing the earth and keeping her alive for all time.
Thank you so much. And there is another question coming from the audience. Earth and all living beings are burning and destroyed by war right now. Can we do some prayer to prevent the destruction? And that this is a very good comment by one of our viewers. Would we be able to engage in who would like to share a prayer in your native tongue to be able to address the burning earth? Our panelists who would like to offer a prayer. Well, we shall give that privilege to Dr. Mann then as the elder of your people. So please.
Hana, 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 Hana Mahil. Nifstanewa Mahil, Nisimon Namuts Eyoy. It's a pivish, name a mutimatsia. A dachen shipatis nida hit manha. Monster. Dime up piva. Na aim chipataminan. It's done here. It's LC Amho Westawa. To die pivamia seal. Honey ocean at Bahova aids in my pivates. Die pivamotaya. To die piv stuff seal. To die piv one she has seal. No, a whoop on it. None nin shivats ties near the estimates that the Nishkiman se ha amanist. A dache hickan in shivatum, no not to davon it seal me va piwamata. Die ha she what staniv, it's here. Se mo another mas that the Nishkiman. A dach na ha no matot. Na zit ze is testament. Audrey the Hitchavest. Helene. Na. Brian. Not say I'm just enough sit the seventh generation. Chris, not Tia Peters. Damn on his first. Duck a die people one shell near die people this time nail. This time here, say I'm just it's all. Duck an inch of what size near this time. Now be a timon on a it's a say my what's done here this it's on now. A die people army. Die your heart, she was done here. No, a ducking in Shivaks ties near the estimate. No, and a honey, knit dog, venani sunny.
Thank you so much for your prayer, Dr. Mann. And we're going to close out our questions right now and give the panelists an opportunity to give your conclusory comments. And we'll begin with Dr. Mann. Your conclusory comments that you would like our viewers to be able to take home today as your important message.
I want all of us to walk softly and gently, as well as loving and respectfully upon this land, this earth that we call home. And to be very loving and respectful and kind to those generations who have yet to come to walk on this earth, who too deserve to inherit an earth, just as we inherited it when we came to share this earth walk with others. It is important that we maintain our responsibilities to one another. Be kind to each other, to respect each other. And of course, I pray every day in my own way to stop the wars that have created tragedy for our relatives who live in the land that is called Ukraine. Please, there have been too many people lost because of war. We need to be more loving and kind to one another. We have to remove the kind of violence that exists not only in that European country, but on the streets of America when we worry about that lawn stick that we were told about that would come with the strangers, and that stick would speak with the voice of thunder. We have to be more understanding of the fact that we are the keeper people of earth, all of us. And it is going to take our combined effort to restore balance and harmony to this earth so that our grandchildren and their great-grandchildren after them too will come to live on this beautiful earth.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mann. Helene, your closing comments, please.
Always be mindful when you're doing anything. Remember who you are, where you come from, and your teachings. And always be mindful of the products that you use, maybe, perhaps, and always ask yourself, what would our ancestors do? They did everything in their power and might to preserve our culture and our way of life for us so many generations ago. So ask yourself, what are we doing to preserve and to create a better way for the ones that are going to be asking for us? Always remember to think of your value system and to be on the forefront in that. Who will you have to answer to? Who do you answer to? Ask yourself, when we go into the next world, we leave this physical form, how are we going to answer for the decisions we make while we're here?
Thank you so much, Helene. Brian, your conclusory comments, please.
Just like these two said, just trying to figure out where you come from, who you're, and find out, some of these teachings of how, we need to continue to live here on the earth, and maintain that connection to our mother. Like I said in the video, continue to put your hands in the ground. And the way that we do it here is we continue to put the corn seed in the ground. The corn is our mother. And so if you can maintain a connection to our mother, whether it be through gardening or even growing flowers and such, that's one of the ways we say that you can maintain that connection. So as you know it, all the hard times that we're going through are really what it comes down to, that is growing your own food and securing your own water and so forth. And that's what's going to be really important to come, while that's here now. But overall, think about what we're doing to where we're living, and just really think hard and deep about what we're doing on a daily basis and how it's going to affect the future and the near future. And always just remember that everything that we say and do has a consequence. And just like what's happening now, as the result of what we've been doing as a race these past years, we're feeling the effects of that. We're feeling the whip of our decisions. And so if we can just continue to live with that in our mind and our hearts, we can begin to restore the balance and create a brighter future for our children and our grandchildren, of everybody here on this earth to come.
So thank you so much, Brian. And I would like to express my deepest appreciation to our three panelists, as well as the many other men and women who shared their stories and vision in the film. And by sharing the wisdom of their elders and the deeper meaning of their cultural practices, they have provided all of us with guidance on how our sacred connection to the earth can be healed by examining our values and restoring balance through honoring the sacredness of Mother Earth. And I would like to thank the G20 Interfaith Forum and its Anti-Racism Initiative for this platform to have this exclusive preview of this film. And I would like to thank the video production teams of the International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation and the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples for the many months of collaboration and dedicated effort that it took to produce this film. We look forward to its premiere on April 20th at the United Nations Permanent Forum for Indigenous Issues. And we hope these profound messages will reach many people around the world, that we may respect and honor the wisdom, traditions, and ceremonies of Indigenous peoples who understood our sacred relationality with Mother Earth and all life forms. May their wisdom flourish, that we may learn the ways to protect and preserve Mother Earth for all present and future generations. And thank you, Dr. Mann, for your beautiful prayer. And may we all pray for peace in the world and peace within ourselves. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.